and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America, with a president who will make America great again. You know, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter, he is a winner, and until not too long ago it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own, but now this movement is coming together. Nevada is coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. You know, he is a fighter, I'll tell you what. You saw that in that debate. Last time I was here in Reno, it was the morning after the debate where he beat Hillary Clinton hands down. And he's going to keep bringing that fight. I appreciate Adam mentioning it. We had a little debate of our own over in Farmville, Virginia. Some people think I won that debate. I'm humbled by that, but I'll tell you what, from where I was sitting, Donald Trump won that debate. Donald Trump's leadership won that debate, and Donald Trump's vision to make America great again is going to win all the way to the White House. You know, at the end of the day, what you all know and what we've got to make sure our friends and neighbors here in Nevada know, in what remains of this election season, is that this isn't really just a choice between two people. It's really a choice between two futures. So let me tell you where I stand. I choose a stronger America. I choose a more prosperous America. I choose an America that stands without apology on our highest constitutional principles. So I choose to stand with Donald Trump and every American who believes we can make this America great again. You know, and it's not like it's exactly a fair fight out there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get up every morning, I got to turn on the television with a stick. I never know what's going to be on there. And it's like it's 2-on-1 out there with many in the mainstream media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her every night. I mean, I just got this report in from Media Research Center found that in the major network news, over the 12 weeks since the national conventions, Donald Trump has gotten the majority of the media coverage, and 91% of it has been negative or hostile to Donald Trump. You know, the media's got a new narrative out there today. Their latest spin is they're working with Hillary Clinton's campaign to try and say this campaign is all but over. You pick that up? This air of inevitability. But don't be fooled, men and women. In Nevada, the race is on. It's all tied up here in Nevada, and we're going to fight all the way to the finish to a great victory all across this country. You know, Hillary may have the media, the money, and the special interests on her side, but we've got the secret weapon. We've got a basket of the American people who are ready for change and ready to make America great again. You know, I just have to tell you, it's not so much what they're reporting out there that frustrates you, but it's what they're not reporting. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, here you got Hillary Clinton, while she was Secretary of State, and stay with me, kids, while she was Secretary of State in charge of all of America's foreign policy, she had a private foundation taking millions of dollars in contributions from foreign governments. And foreign million. And in between those two things, she had this private server so that the communications about what was going on apparently couldn't reach the public. I mean, it really is amazing. You know, Bob Woodward, famously of Woodward and Bernstein, remember that? Some of you are old enough to remember the Watergate years. Well, Bob Woodward says on Sunday morning on television, he says of the Clinton Foundation when she was Secretary of State, he said, it's not just unseemly, quote, it's corrupt. And it's hard to come to any other conclusion. The FBI just the other day actually confirmed that the State Department under Hillary Clinton actually offered a quid pro quo to the FBI if they let them change the classified status of emails on her private server. Did you hear about that one? And there was this other one where Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, actually her aides directed contracts, or they said that companies that were friends of the Clintons should be flagged for contracts to rebuild Haiti, and every other business applying for those contracts should just go to the website. You know, the American people are sick and tired of pay-to-play politics benefiting the favored few in our nation's capital. And it's exactly the kind of politics that's going to come to a crashing halt the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. And Donald Trump's got a plan. Donald Trump's got a 100-day action plan beginning with bringing honesty, integrity, and change to Washington, D.C. We're going to pass ethics reform in the first 100 days, and we're going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. The truth is that Donald Trump's plan is contract with the American voter. I hope you go out there in the next 13 days and tell your neighbors and friends here in Nevada all about it. The man who wrote The Art of the Deal's got a real deal for the American people. And the contrast between that and Hillary Clinton's record of failure just couldn't be more dramatic. So we need to talk about it for a minute. We need to talk about it for a minute. On the subject of security and prosperity and the highest court in the land, the choice in this election couldn't be more dramatic. I mean, literally, the American people are going to make a decision a week from next Tuesday between someone who literally personifies the failed establishment in Washington, D.C. and a leader who will change the status quo, change the direction of our country, and make America great again. That's the choice that we have. And the record reflects it. Now, on security alone, think about it. Despite traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, the world is more dangerous today than the day that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama took over our foreign policy. Our allies are less secure, our enemies are more emboldened. The truth is, 7.5 years of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's brand of foreign policy has weakened America's place in the world. You know, history teaches that weakness arouses evil. And the weak infect this foreign policy, the architect of which was Hillary Clinton of this administration, of leading from behind, of moving red lines, of feigning resets with Russia, and of paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states, is emblematic of that weakness. You know, let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price. You know, it was Hillary Clinton who initiated that disastrous deal with the radical mullahs in Iran. They got $150 billion, and all we got was a delay of their nuclear ambitions. It's incredible. It was Hillary Clinton who failed to negotiate an agreement with the sovereign country of Iraq that would have allowed American soldiers to remain at a force level enough to secure the hard-fought gains that the American soldier had won in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Don't ever forget it here in Nevada. Don't ever forget it. That through difficult years and incredible sacrifice, the American soldier won the peace and won the security of the people of Iraq by the end of 2008. You know, I know that I'm sure there are men and women who've worn the uniform of the United States in recent conflicts and in far distant battlefields who are with us here today. Would you mind just raising your hand and letting us thank you one more time? You know, it just grieves my heart to think of the sacrifices our soldiers made to secure Operation Iraqi Freedom and how this administration withdrew all American forces before the end of 2012 and created the very vacuum in which the terrorist organization of ISIS was able to be conjured up out of the desert sands to overrun vast areas. We stand here today with them on our hearts and in our prayers. 5,000 plus American Special Forces are back in Iraq, having to win back what was lost. because of the bad judgment and leadership of this administration and Hillary Clinton. And lastly, it was Hillary Clinton's State Department, who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And after 4 Americans fell, and after she told their parents that it was because of a filmmaker in the United States, even though the record reflects she knew it was a terrorist attack the very night that it happened. When she was questioned before the Senate, she said, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Well, let me tell you, as the proud parents of a United States Marine, let me say this. Anyone who said that, anyone who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. You do not leave Americans in harm's way, and you do not ask what difference does it make when they fall. This administration has not only exercised bad judgment, we've hollowed out our military. Lowest troop levels of the Army since 1940. Smallest Navy since 1916. We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies, abandoning our friends, and hollowing out the arsenal of democracy. For the world to be safe, America needs to be strong. And Donald Trump will lead on the world stage with American strength. We will rebuild our military. We will restore the arsenal of democracy. We will supply our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines with the resources and training they need to hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source. And we will once again have peace through strength. You know, but it's not just about security abroad, it's also about safety here at home. The truth is, it's a very challenging time for men and women who followed a calling into law enforcement here in Nevada and all across this country. It seems like every time tragedy strikes, when a police officer is performing their duties, rather than simply asking all the questions and asking for the accountability that is the public's right, too many in the national media and too many in the American liberal left are quick to use a broad brush to demean law enforcement across the board in this country, some characterizing it as a force for division in this country. Well, Donald Trump and I know different. Men and women who serve in law enforcement in this country are the best of us. They put their lives on the line every single day for us. And when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States of America, you will have a president that supports law enforcement at every level with the resources and training they need to protect our families and come home safe to theirs. And we will restore law and order to every city and every community in this land. You know, before I may take one step further, there's an awful lot of law enforcement officers who are with us here today. Would you mind just maybe turning around and showing the men and women in law enforcement just how much we appreciate the job they do for our families here in Nevada and all across this country. You know, Donald Trump will stand with law enforcement. That's probably why the 330,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police nationwide have endorsed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. So this election is about security abroad and safety at home, but it's also about our prosperity. The truth of the matter is that we stand today in the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. The numbers are heartbreaking. I mean, listen to this. Today, nearly 1 in 4 Americans in their prime earning years isn't even working. We have the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s. 1 in 5 households in this country have no one with a job. 1 in 5. 45 million Americans are on food stamps. And 47 million Americans are living below the poverty line. Millions more than when Barack Obama became president of the United States. Hillary Clinton's plan? More of the same. More taxes, more regulation, more Obamacare, more of the war on American energy, and more of the kind of bad trade deals that are robbing America's vitality and American jobs. You know, I like to say they tell us this economy is the best that we can do. But I think we know better. It's not the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, we're going to get this economy moving again with time-honored conservative principles, and we're going to get America back to work. Because Donald Trump has a plan. Donald Trump has a plan. Looks a whole lot like what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s. Frankly, looks a lot like what John F. Kennedy did in the 1960s. Instead of raising taxes by $1 trillion that Hillary Clinton wants to do, we're going to work with a re-elected majority in the House and in the Senate. When you send a newly elected Senator Joe Heck to the United States Senate, renewed Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, we're going to roll our sleeves up right out of the gate, and we're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We're going to end death taxes once and for all, and we're going to lower business taxes in America so that businesses here in Nevada can create jobs in the United States and not see them go overseas. And because regulation's a form of taxation, Donald Trump is going to repeal every single Obama executive order that's waging war on jobs and creativity in the country. We're going to end the war on American energy on day one. We're going to develop an all-of-the-above American energy strategy that calls forth all the resources of our land. And when Donald Trump becomes negotiator-in-chief, we're going to renegotiate NAFTA. We're going to get out of this Trans-Pacific thing. And trade will mean jobs, but trade will mean American jobs first. And lastly, we're going to pry off the back of the American economy that profoundly idea that is the very unaffordable Affordable Care Act. I mean, it's becoming more obvious to everybody across the country. Earlier this week, the Obama administration actually published the fact that the average premiums under Obamacare in 2017 are going to go up 25%. I mean, you remember when they said you could keep your doctor? Not true. Remember when they said, if you like your health insurance, you can keep it? Not true. And now Hillary Clinton says she's going to fix it. I mean, the truth of the matter is, even though her husband says it's the craziest thing in the world, Hillary Clinton actually now is talking about making changes in Obamacare. Well, I'll tell you what those changes are going to look like. She actually went up to Canada. We saw one of those speeches she gave up there. She went up to Canada and actually said her ideal was to have a healthcare system in America just like the Canadian healthcare system. Well, Canada's got socialized healthcare. And that'd be going from the frying pan into the fire, Hillary. I mean, the truth is, earlier this year, Hillary Clinton said it best. She said, quote, before they called it Obamacare, they called it Hillary Care. My favorite this week, though, is what President Obama said last week in Miami. Did you hear about this one? He actually went down to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of the rollout of this disastrous health care policy. He said, President Obama actually compared, you're going to think I made this up, President Obama actually compared Obamacare to the Samsung Galaxy 7 phones that spontaneously burst into flames. He did. Here's the quote. He said, when one of these companies comes out with a new smartphone and has a few bugs, what do? They fix it. They upgrade it. Unless it catches fire, then they pull it off the market. Well, what a coincidence, Mr. President. That's exactly what we're going to do with Obamacare. We're going to pull it off the market so it can't burn up our wallets anymore. Men and women, when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we're going to work with that re-elected majority in the House and the Senate. We're going to repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel. And we're going to replace it with the kind of health care reform that focuses on lowering the cost of health insurance instead of growing the size of government. We're not going to go with the socialized medicine Canadian style that Hillary Clinton wants. We're going to give the American consumer more choices and let the American free market solve our health care needs. That's the American way. So it's about security, it's about prosperity. As you go out and talk to your neighbors and friends, probably most importantly, it's an awful lot to do with the highest court in the land. I mean, the truth of the matter is, men and women, with the passing of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia, you all here in Reno need to know that literally the balance of the Supreme Court is on the ballot. But the next president will likely have the chance to appoint as many as 2 or 3 justices to the court. So while the next president will serve for 4 years, that president will likely set the course and direction of the Supreme Court and the law of this country for the next 40 years. And did you hear Hillary Clinton? You know, I was here the morning after that debate. Last time I came through Reno. She was asked a question right out of the gate about the Supreme Court. It really is remarkable when you think about the answer that she gave. I mean, it took her every bit of 2 minutes to ever mention the Constitution of the United States. It's true. But when Hillary Clinton was asked about the Supreme Court, she said, quote, "The Supreme Court should represent all of us. That's how I see the court." Well, I served in the Congress before I was governor of the great state of Indiana. I did. I was a representative in the Congress. We have a representative portion of our government. It's called the Congress. The President of the United States arguably represents all the American people. Hillary, the Supreme Court is supposed to represent the Constitution of the United States of America, uphold the Constitution for every American, and settle disputes that arise between our people and our laws. That's what it's supposed to do. Well, you saw that agenda. You saw last week there's no restriction on abortion that Hillary Clinton would ever support. No restriction on the Second Amendment that she would ever oppose. So let me just say to all of you here in Nevada, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of that Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all the God-given liberties that are enshrined in our Bill of Rights, we must decide here and now in Nevada that we will gather our neighbors and friends together to ensure that the next president to make appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States will be President Donald Trump. So I got a couple of requests for you, and then I'm headed off to Utah, and I'm headed off to Colorado. As the poet said, miles to go before we sleep. But it's the greatest privilege of my life. It truly is. And let me thank you all for coming out today. I know I'm not the main event, and you're awfully kind to come out to support this tonight. I got a couple things I'd like to ask you to think about doing right out of the gate. First and foremost, number one, vote early. Okay? I mean, y'all kind of took the day, or part of the day, right? So I want you to just leave here today and go vote. Now, we got early voting started since this last weekend. I just happened to look it up when I got off the plane. Downtown Reno Library. That's at 301 South Center Street. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And it's only 1.4 miles from right here. You can walk it. Go vote. Just go vote and get it out of the way. Grab a neighbor or friend, grab somebody that came to this rally today. Just leave from here and go vote. Go exercise that franchise that has been won and defended through generations of Americans. And number two, once you vote early with your neighbors and your friends, the second thing I want you to do for the next 13 days, however we reckon it. Let's go tell somebody. Okay? I mean, the truth of the matter is, I started out today saying, we all kind of recognize it's 2-on-1 out there with the national media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her every day. But the amazing thing is, Donald Trump is still winning hearts and minds every day because the American people are telling somebody. They're talking to each other. And they're telling people what this election is really all about. I mean, they're telling people that really and truly this is an election between change and the status quo. And the other side is saying if you like your status quo, you can keep it. They'll keep that promise. But when you talk to somebody, tell them you ran into me in Reno, maybe this week or last. Just tell them, Mike said the other day something that kind of stuck with me. And I hope it does. This isn't, sometimes back in Indiana, I'm sure this never happens in Nevada. Back in Indiana, sometimes there's not a dime's worth of difference between the people that either party puts up. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes. I mean, you go in and you think, well, if that person wins, okay. If that other person wins, probably mostly still okay. This isn't such a time. This isn't really even a choice between left and right or Republican or Democrat. It's like Ronald Reagan said, this is a choice between up and down. This is a choice between whether we're going to continue to go down the hill to a weaker America on the world stage, a weaker American military, more emboldened adversaries and competitors, a weakened and stifled American economy walking farther away from our most cherished constitutional ideals, or whether we're going to stop, plant our feet, turn around, and march back up the hill to a stronger America at home and abroad, the arsenal of democracy, the most powerful economy in the world, grounded in our highest constitutional ideals. That's the choice. And you got to go tell somebody. And when we're telling somebody, there's a particular group I'd like you to tell here in Reno, if you would. I want you to look for them. Look, we've won over independence around the country. I mean, Donald Trump's message to make America great again has won over people frustrated with gridlock in Washington, D.C., and frustrated with the corruption emanating out of our nation's capital. We've won over, frankly, many Democrats across this country because they're worried with the liberal policies coming out of our nation's capital and with the kind of trade deals that have been costing American jobs. But right now, I want to challenge each and every one of you to reach out to our fellow Republicans across Reno and across Nevada. Now it's time to reach out to our fellow Republican friends and neighbors and say with one voice, it's time to come home. I would submit to each and every one of you, go tell your neighbors and friends in Republican ranks, it's time to come home. Come home to vote for the Trump-Pence team. Come home to elect Joe Heck to the United States Senate and re-elect Republican majorities in Congress. And come home. Come home to be a part of a movement in this country that will make sure that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States of America. You got to go tell them that. When I think of these times, I just think it's the American people are just tired of being told. We're tired of being told this is as good as it gets. We're tired of being told that we're tired of being told by leaders in both political parties that they'll get around to solving the big problems facing this country, just not today. Donald Trump went to Washington, D.C. today and took a little break from the campaign trail to dedicate another hotel in his business, surrounded by his family. If you want to know, we talked last night and he said to me, Mike, we finished that hotel in our nation's capital on time and ahead of schedule and under budget, actually. And I said, well, that's probably the first time anything's been built in Washington, D.C. in 100 years. That was under budget and ahead of schedule. But Donald Trump spoke some words today at that gathering that really touched my heart. Because he talked about that sentiment of the American people. And he said himself these words. He said, He said, quote, I'm tired of the excuses from our politicians.
Yeah, right.
He said, I'm tired of people asking the American people to defer their dreams. Donald Trump said this morning, on the other end of this continent, he said, the future lies with the dreamers, not the cynics and the critics. That everywhere he goes, he sees untapped potential, waiting to be set free. He said, our people are great. No task or project is too great. We will never allow anyone to tell us it can't be done. That's optimism, and that's leadership. So I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you in the days ahead. 3 things. Vote today. Already did. I want you to go tell somebody. But I want you to have that kind of faith. Exercise some faith in the days ahead. First, have the kind of faith you just heard in Donald Trump's words in the American people. That there is no project too great. There is no hill too tall that the American people can't challenge and can't achieve and can't overcome. So have faith in the American people and have that other kind of faith too. You know, if you're inclined to do what the Pences do from time to time, to bow the head and bend the knee, now's a good time to do it. And you know, I would say to you with great sincerity, on this one, I'm in these divided times in our country where there seems to be so few great purposes that unite us as they once did. This is just be a good time in the next 2 weeks to pray for America. I mean, this nation is important not only to the hundreds of millions of people that call it home and call themselves Americans. This nation is important to the world. We're a beacon of freedom. And so I encourage you to pray for America and for the choice in this day of decision for our country. And when you pray, you know, I think what Abraham Lincoln said in his time, he was asked if he thought that God was on his side. He said, you know, I rather concern myself more with whether we're on God's side than that God is on our side. But pray that way. And when you pray with confidence. Because I truly believe with all my heart that what's been true for millennia is still true today, that if His people who are called by His name will humble themselves and pray, that He'll do as He's always done through much more challenging times. He'll again hear from heaven, and He'll heal this land, this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.